I would try.
I'm flexible. I don't care. Let's see. Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? Doing good? Let's go ahead and go over, while the pin's up there, a couple things. This week we're going to be, or the network call is due this week. I've had about 3 of you turn in those network call assignment already. And I think I told you, if you get 1 or 2, you're good as far as kickbacks on successful response from people, whether it be audio, an audible response on a phone or email. If you work in a place that has a network admin, hopefully, if nothing else, they will give you some information to help you. So at least 1 there. But if you have any questions about that, get with me before you leave tonight. I'll give you some ideas to help you if you're struggling with it. But basically, we just sit down and, I know some students, or a lot of students, and don't like to do cold calling because that's what you're basically doing. So I have had students say, ask me, could you email? Would I mind you emailing the questions and not calling at all? That'd be fine. You want to do that? Okay. If you're totally overwhelmed with the calling aspect, you can just email folks. Does that sound good? So that's an out if you do not want to call. Troubleshooting discussion we're going to go over tonight in chapter 13, troubleshooting lab. You have little handouts in front of you. The lab's going to be a lot of fun. We'll watch a really serious, it's a funny video on things you shouldn't do in troubleshooting called Hell Desk. And
don't swear at the IT person. That doesn't get you anywhere.
2 weeks until final presentation. Week 14, A through N. Week 15, O through Z. I am flexible on that, so just as long as everybody completes their presentation, I'm fine. If those of you, if you can't get it done week 14 or don't want to do it, you can do, switch to somebody on for week 15. So, but basically, 2 weeks from tonight, you'll begin presentations. When you guys come in 2 weeks from tonight, you will hopefully try to get here if you're presenting a few minutes early, because I'm going to have to dump your PowerPoint or your keynote or your open office presentation, whatever format you have it in, into my Mac, so we make sure everything works good. Also, if you have any videos, make sure those play and all that good stuff. So if you have handouts, and so try to get here a few minutes early, like maybe 5-10 minutes early if you could, on week 14, those of you that are presenting. The research paper isn't due until the night of your presentation, and so don't worry about, you don't hand it in to me, you're gonna put it in the Dropbox for that week 14. I will put in week 14 and 15 both. Everybody's presentation will be uploaded there, as well as a podcast of that session. It'll be recorded, so folks can watch it afterwards. There should be some out there already from last semester or before, of prior podcasts that have been put out there from prior semesters. You can look at those as well. Hopefully you had some time to get a good chunk of your work done on your outline and begin researching your research paper and presentation. So I'm looking forward to that. In a couple of weeks, it'll be here before you know it. So let me go ahead and turn on the, everybody get the pin in? Everybody still putting the pin? Okay. All right, so already went over that. I wanted to go over now the troubleshooting exercise. The handout in front of you actually goes over some of these, by the way, on the troubleshooting exercises. You don't need to put anything on the handout yet, but you will be when we do our little lab, where you'll be a troubleshooter and you'll also be a person having trouble or giving trouble. Some of you will be. And so we're going to basically describe some of the steps involved in effective troubleshooting and look at a systematic approach. Now, it is a method, so any method is not perfect, and it can be changed, it can be modified, but it's an approach, it's a method that you need kind of a template to go by to start with. And so we'll go over that. We'll look at some ways that you can document solutions. Maybe ask you guys some ways your work maybe does it. If you already are in an IT department, how they document solutions for future problems or repeat problems. And then some of the variety of software and hardware tools that we can use to troubleshoot. So the first is on the troubleshooting methodology. And this is difficult to do, but one of the things you got to learn when you're in IT is go through certain methods, through certain steps, 1 through 10, without skipping steps. People want to skip steps and you want to really try your best to keep to those steps and those methods. Now, again, rules are broken or meant to be broken when it comes to that, and so there's going to be times where you'll have to be flexible on steps and procedures. Follow the recommended steps, use experience when necessary, ask for help when necessary. A logical approach benefits you. It prevents any wasted time, unnecessary software, hardware replacements. So, for instance, if you replace a NIC card on the computer and realize it was just a bad connection on the Ethernet cord, on the Cat5 connection, you wasted $30 on a NIC card. That happens. Now, even if you followed all the steps, that still could happen. But let's say you didn't follow the steps and just thought, man, it's a NIC card, and it wasn't. And so, even when you follow steps, sometimes things happen, and you bought hardware you shouldn't have, or you implemented software where you shouldn't have, and that's going to happen. Okay. So here's some steps. These steps that we're going to go over. The first is identify symptoms or the problems, identify the affected area, determine what has changed, establish the most probable cause, determine if it needs to go any higher than where it's at, meaning another department, manager, their manager, your manager, create an action plan, a solution, implement that solution and test it, identify results and the effects of those results, and then finally document the solution in the process. Okay. Different terminology is used for all of these. Some IT departments call it like a ticket system, a help system, help desk system, and all these systems I'm talking about. We've mentioned a few like Spiceworks has a help desk system. Microsoft has its own help desk system through SharePoint. So there's a whole bunch of different ones that you can use, that you can set up these rules to help you when somebody's on the phone or when you're in an email conversation with somebody to make sure you follow these steps. So let's talk about the first one, identifying the symptoms and problems. Asking questions like, for instance, if it's a network problem, like an internet problem, is anyone else around you have the same issue? Well, no, everybody else around me can get on just fine, get on the internet just fine. It could be questions, it's inquiry questions. How long has it been happening? When did you notice it, roughly? Has it happened before? If it has happened before, do you remember what it was that we had to do to fix it? You can ask questions like that. Because a lot of times IT, we try to maybe not ask those type of questions because we maybe feel like they think we're stupid if we ask those type of questions. But really a lot of times the end user, if they've had these issues before, can tell you quickly what it was that you had to do last time to fix it. Right? And so, because generally on a ticket system, after it's closed, the end user will get a result of that ticket, and in that result will be how you fixed it. That might be all the technical mumbo jumbo that you use to fix it, but they can remember, more likely will remember, and can help you. And so, avoid jumping to conclusions about symptoms. That's a big one too. Pay attention. Users, systems, and networks, behaviors, error messages, and treat each symptom uniquely, meaning you don't want to bunch it together generically, with, oh, it's this problem again, or it's that problem again. You get kind of twofold on that one. When you treat it like that, people on the other end notice that, and they feel slighted and maybe offended by your response. Like, oh, well, that happens all the time, or no big deal, or, you know, it seems like this happens to you every day. There's questions like that. I mean, you know, list goes on and on of things you could say that maybe be definitely offensive. And you might not even mean it that way coming out, but it comes out that way. And so, you know, you gotta be real careful on what you say. So the next is determine the affected area and group. Again, I already mentioned this, is it one user, one workstation? Is it a whole work group, a whole department? One location with the organization, so say like marketing, sales is the only problem, having printer issues, or an entire organization. So here you're figuring out the scope of the problem, whether it's isolated to that individual PC or an entire organization. Identify the affected area, continued here, narrow down the time frame. When did it begin to happen? Well, I came in at 9 o'clock, was logged in just fine, went to this website, worked great, went to this website, and started seeing it started to slow down, and now I can't get into my web module to start working. For the last 30 minutes, I've been trying over and over again. Has a network server workstation ever worked properly? Did symptoms appear in the last hour or day? Has the symptoms appeared intermediately or for a long time? Do the symptoms appear only at certain times of the day, week, month, or year? Like for instance, say your company does not have that great of bandwidth when it comes to internet, and it's lunchtime, and employees in your company are allowed to search the web during lunchtime on their own time, you know, while they're eating lunch or whatever. So you're going to have a lot more traffic on the internet at noon versus 9 to noon, okay? So when people call at 12:05 and they're like, man, I'm trying to download this file for my project and it's taken forever. That is definitely going to be, you know, something general knowledge you'll be able to share with them. Well, it is the noon hour. A lot of people are online. More than likely, that's what's causing the slowness. But let me definitely look into it to see if it's more of an issue than that. And then call them back and let them know. Yeah, it's just because everybody's on the internet right now. I apologize for that. It's going to take longer. Or maybe you might wait till after 1 o'clock if you can, and try to download it again at that time. So something like that. So you're giving them a solution and a feedback immediately instead of just, you know, no answer whatsoever. And so they might not like the answer, but most folks will, you know, understand it partially, that there's really nothing you can do about it. They might not be happy with it and might tell you that, but at least you've communicated what the issues are. And if it keeps happening, it might be a matter of having to increase bandwidth, or people not being allowed to go online during lunch hour if you don't want to spend the money on increasing bandwidth. Okay? And so those are things that you have to discuss amongst IT. So the other one is benefits here. Eliminates some causes, points to others when you're trying to identify the affected areas. So say you're in, I don't know, you find out marketing has a problem printing. Well, while you're over marketing trying to figure out what's going on with the printing issue, you also realize that 4 or 5 of the people in marketing are downloading files during that same time on the same channel on the switch that the printers are connected to. And that's what's causing the congestion and the issues with the printing taking so long and getting clogged up. So it might mean moving things around a little bit, like maybe moving the printer onto another switch that doesn't happen again. And so while you're finding out problems, you might also find other things as well, which happens a lot. Continuing on the affected area, take time to troubleshoot it correctly. People will want to rush you, but you want to make sure to take time to be thorough as possible. When you ask specific questions or repeat back what people say to you, that a lot of times will diminish anger or frustration. Okay, I hear that you're telling me that you're having a problem printing. Okay, you just told me you're having a problem printing, and it's happened since from 9 o'clock. So when you're repeating it back, what that tells them is you're listening to them, number one. You're understanding what they're saying, number two. Now, you might not have any solution yet whatsoever, and you probably won't right then. But it's going to calm them down immediately that, okay, I've now transferred my problem here to you. You understand what's going on. And that's all they really care about. I'm going to go leave for a while, for 30 minutes. I got a meeting. I'm going to let you handle it. Okay? And they're not going to worry about it because they've handed it off to you. So by repeating back what the problem is, will also diffuse situations. Talks about here also filter unrelated user information. What that means is they will a lot of times give you data you don't really need. Okay? Like, well, I've been here 5 years, so-and-so's been here 2 years, and hey, that guy over there been here 2 weeks. And by the way, I just, yesterday I saw this router at Best Buy, and I was wanting to know maybe if you could, so all this stuff's coming at you while you're trying to help. You just have to filter that, okay? You just have to do your best to filter that. And then plus people that work in that area will also come around and start telling you issues they've been having maybe that they haven't told anyone about. So now the IT person's there, it's now time to let them know all the problems, okay? And so you're trying to solve that one issue. And so, you have to be able to filter that in a nice way. Discover time and frequency of problem may reveal more subtle network issues, like I mentioned earlier with the switch and printers. Identify effective problem around the area. This leads to the next troubleshooting step, which is, well, let's go over this here first. This is just a little if, else, or yes, no type of scenario. And so the first issue here is identifying the issue. Is the problem limited to one user or workstation? If it's yes, examine the individual workstation for problems. Consider what that problem is. If it's no, is it limited to the department? What if it's no there? Is it universal? If it's yes, examine the backbone, servers, power sources, major connectivity devices, so on and so forth. If it's not universal, examine the affected users and the workstations more closely. It might be an update possibly that updated the night before that's causing an issue with print drivers to where they can't print now because the print driver is updated and it's not allowing that group of computers to print. And this goes down to the bottom one here. Do the workstations use the same type of hardware? If it's yes, okay, notice it says here, examine hardware, NIC, cabling for problems. If it's no, it could be were workstation configured similarly at the same time by the same person. The other one you could throw in here is updates as well. That a lot of times will cause issues. Have the devices ever worked before? Okay. This could be an issue where somebody was just given a laptop, okay, to work on, and IT install all the software, but there's maybe say they have an external drive that they have, it's their drive that they use for files. They plug it in, doesn't work, okay, and it's never worked because you didn't configure it. So it's one of those systems that you've never configured before. So if that's the case, you examine the device, figure out what the problem is. You might have to install some software for that device, which a lot of external devices need some type of drivers or software possibly, and then it's going to work. Also, if devices have worked before, did the symptoms appear in the last hour or day? If it's no, have they appeared intermittently for a long time? If it's yes, we'll say examine the devices and connectivity for damage. If it's no on that, do the symptoms appear only certain times of the day? Yes. Environmental factors, network events like peak times of internet usage, like I mentioned earlier, could be the issue. And then the last box here is important, where it says, do symptoms appear only certain times day, week, or year? If it's no, this could be because the symptoms are unpredictable. Human factors, such as user error, can be at fault here. And so people, maybe, I don't know, an example would be, they're supposed to log in a certain process or procedure. They're supposed to access a menu on their program in a certain way, and every day they access it the wrong way. That's an example. And you have to go and help them every day, whether physically go to their desk or do it remotely through a VNC type of app. Does that happen in IT? Yes, all the time. Some of you that work in IT are shaking like, yes, all the time. Okay? So human error is going to be a part of it. Okay? Next, determine what's changed. Be aware of recent network changes. Are you going to know all the time what those changes are? You aren't. So that's where talking to one another in your IT department, also having a change log, whether through SharePoint or some type of internal blog or wiki, to where you guys post things that you've done. Everybody in the department every day posts jobs they've done, things they fixed, and everybody can read it. It's global. Okay? And that's important to have. Possible actions, if change did generate a problem, correct it, reverse it, like roll it back, roll back an update, roll back a fix, turn off a service that might have been turned on the day before on a server. I've had that happen. Reversing a change here says it's less risky and less time consuming. That's not the case all the time. On reversing things, it sometimes takes longer. It's not a short fix. Sometimes reversing things are impossible once they've been implemented. As far as it might need to be totally reinstalled or something, or the server program might need to be reinstalled. That's why important testing is so important. But network change records, track what's changed on the network, whether new IP addresses, new laptops, new desktops, new printers, new switches, new hubs. Make records available online via wiki, via SharePoint. Make your own website and add areas where you can add data to that. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it. Even as simple as I know departments that use a spreadsheet, whatever. Just something simple that people can access all the time. Personally, I like the SharePoint. I use that a lot and developed a lot of plugins for SharePoint. And everybody can access it and determine at any moment what active items we have, what's recently been closed, what's recently being tested right now. And then establishing the most probable cause. So what you want to do here is determine the probable cause, verify user competence, ensure that the human error is not a problem there with the source, verify the user is performing network tasks correctly. You physically in this step have to watch them. Okay? 9 times out of 10, they're doing something wrong. If it is a user issue. Okay? And you can connect via remote, but a lot of times with people that have issues a lot, it's easier for you just to walk over and to watch them, because even through remote connectivity, you can't see what they're doing with their mouse. You can't, because you can be remoting in, and they're like, well, I'm doing this. Well, no, I can see that you're doing it. So it's hard to argue when you're remoting in. So when you're right there, you can catch things. But now, even though you're right there and you catch things and you train them again, a week later or a month later, it could happen again. And it probably will happen again to that same individual. And so you just have to document that. When you're not there that day, maybe somebody looks up, oh, Joe's got this problem. They looked up, well, Chuck helped fix it, and he did this. He had to walk over there and watch him. That's what you do. You walk over there and watch him. And then that fixes it. Results, like, for instance, catching user-generated mistakes, any clues for further troubleshooting. It might be training in a whole department. I've seen that before. They might need a little training thing, or, I've created like little tutorials for them. I have little lunch sessions, whatever. It seems like for a lot of people, if you do a one-on-one with them, it really means more than a group, especially those who have a lot of problems following steps. And sometimes it's not that they don't want to follow steps, they don't get it. Okay, they'll tell you that. You might walk through the steps, and at the end of the steps, they'll say, I don't get it. Okay, what don't you get? I don't get everything. Well, you just did. Step one, step two, no, all steps. Okay. And so then you got to start at the very beginning and figure out what issues they have and try to help them. And it takes patience and patience and patience. And that's about it. Okay. Recreate the problem. People will call you and say, well, I had this issue. You'll try to recreate it and you won't be able to do it. Does that happen a lot in IT? Yes, it does. Again, it could be user error. It could be entry error, input error. They're entering something in incorrectly. And the way I generally handle it in those cases is, I will say, I try to replicate what you just told me. I wasn't able to, but I'm going to keep looking at it. I'm going to keep looking at this. And what you're telling them is, you don't think that they're lying to you, number one, and that you care what they just told you, even though you couldn't replicate it. And a lot of times, that's it. That's all you hear about it. It's over. Now, it might have been user error, more likely was, but if it's a one-time thing and it's isolated to one person and everybody else has no problems, more likely it's a user issue. And so instead of saying, you did it wrong, don't call me again, you didn't do the steps right, so I couldn't replicate it, I don't care. Do you want to say that? Yes, but you don't say that. Okay, you say, I tried to replicate it, I couldn't, but hey, I'm going to keep looking at this. I know this is important to you, I'm going to keep looking at it. Oh, okay, great. Thanks for your time. Oh, I can get into it now, it's fine now, everything's great, worked great. Okay, good. Well, I'll keep looking at it, and we'll keep an eye on
Are
it.
you supposed to be truthful?
Do I now?
Are you supposed to be truthful?
Sometimes a one.
Well, you're supposed to be truthful in as far as knowing what they need to hear.
Truthful.
Knowing what they need to hear, right. That's being truthful. I'm being truthful and I'm saying what I know they need to hear. Because if I'm truthful beyond that, internally, for what I think truth is, in that case, then no, I probably wouldn't have a job today. And so, so you've got to use tact, you've got to use, kindness and patience. So after you try to recreate the problem, you could reproduce those systems or not. Follow the steps you're supposed to, ask questions, everything we just went over. Also, under establishing most probable cause, continuing here, verify if it's a physical layer connectivity, like it could be a Cat5 cable, could be a switch that's going. Figure out where it's located at, could faulty connections, loose connectors, that damaged cable, somebody stepped on a cable or tripped on it, pulled it out of the computer, and just plugged it in again. But now the wires are loose in the Cat5 connector. I've seen that happen before. Or they stretched out on their desk and kicked the cable, knocked it out. They got under the desk to plug it back in, but the wires are now kind of just barely hanging there. And so they won't tell you they kicked it. And they might not even know they kicked it. Okay? I give them the benefit of the doubt. I might have kicked it. Maybe the maintenance guy did it. Who cares? Let's go ahead and fix it. Whatever. Just get it done. Software errors may point to physical connectivity problems because an example would be, okay, if I go to your computer right now, unplug, if you're on the internet, I unplug the Cat5 cable or turn off the switch, what's going to happen on your computer immediately? What little bubble's going to pop up? If I unplug your network connection, what bubble's going to pop up on a PC?
Local area network connection has been disconnected.
Yeah, your network connection's been disconnected. So software does that, gives you that bubble. It tells you that, but guess what? It's a network connection that's unplugged, or the switch was turned off, or a power surge, or whatever. Hardware problem. Also, continue on with probable cause, verify things like physical layer problems like is there sound connections between devices? So say like between switch and switch in a box like up here, there could be a connection loose. It could be a connection from PC to the wall. Swapping equipment helps as well. I do this a lot. I'll bring something with me or keep stuff with me. Like I always bring Cat5 cables with me, spare ones, laptop definitely. Connect to their Ethernet connection, see if I have the same issue. Okay, that way you can see if it's isolated to the connection or the machine. Okay, so IT departments will always have a laptop with pretty much the same software on it as all their clients. That's a good idea to have. That way you can kind of walk around, plug in your Ethernet, and see if you can duplicate and replicate the same issues you're having on the desktop. That makes sense? That way you can isolate it to, hey, it's the desktop. It's going wrong here. Something's going on with the desktop. Swapping equipment works. Changing patch cables works sometimes. I'm not going to go through that again. Let's go through the logical connections. You want to look at things like, we've had this happen in here. Internet's not connecting. You go in and and they've hard coded it in the Cisco class. So you have to, make sure it's auto config on TCP/IP. Generally, that's the case. In a workplace environment, that generally is not going to ever change. People are generally never messing with your NIC configuration. So in a work environment, there could be something like they installed software that messed up your NIC environment, okay? That overrode it. Like for instance, a lot of these cloud apps that are out today for people to use at work or at home will actually add virtual NIC drives, virtual NIC devices, just for that device, okay? And they'll actually will show up in the networking area and control panel as a separate NIC when it's turned on and being in use. Well, that could cause, I've seen that actually cause issues if you've locked down your networking to such a way where you don't allow your network to be bridged, or you don't allow your network to share internet connection. Because a lot of these cloud apps want you to share the internet connection with that new NIC device. Well, if you disable that, that's going to cause problems. And so, more than likely, I'm guessing they weren't supposed to install that anyway, but they did. And you gotta, nicely tell them, we're not allowed to install software without approval from your department head or your manager or whatever the case may be. And then tell them why. For instance, with a cloud app, if you connect this cloud app to your work machine, you're opening it up for the entire world to see our files. Somebody could hack into your cloud app. You probably wouldn't do it, but somebody could get into your cloud app and, get into your files, and they can't. And so that is that's something they probably didn't think of. Is it convenient? Yeah, for them it's convenient, but it's a security thing too. And so if you share with them stuff like that, a lot of times they don't think of that. They really don't. They honestly do not think of that. Most users I deal with, when I help them with issues like that, are not trying to sabotage the network. They're just trying to make things easier for them to get their work done, which is no problem with that. But there might be another solution, which is, hey, we can go to my PC, or we can install logmein.com or whatever. Let's talk to your manager and see if he wants you to do that. That's a solution. You can do something like that possibly, okay? And so you don't want people installing rogue applications out there for security purposes. And they get it. Then on this one, determine whether escalation is necessary. Because there are different tiers of support, okay? You got your help desk who answers the calls, and depending on the size of business, these might be all one person, okay? This might be all one person, different levels. You're it. You are the levels. But when somebody calls in and they need help with a printer, you're the one that takes down the information, how long it's been happening, anyone else having the issue, you go through the whole gamma. You're going through all this escalation yourself. You are getting them, the data that they need, asking the questions they need. And then maybe, if you do have help more than yourself at your workplace, You then might help, hand it off to a network guy, or maybe the programmer or the phone guy to be able to get the help that that person needs. But before you hand it off to whomever, make sure you have as much information as you can, and that you can't yourself fix it before handing it off. Okay? Because, there is areas that you will be an expert in, I'm guessing. That generally happens that way. And then there'll be areas other people in your department will be experts in. Okay? And it's good to have those to go to that different level of support. And then know when and how to escalate, follow a given procedure. Every department's going to have different procedures and different folks in. Now that's not to say if you're out and you're the phone person that we can't handle it enough. We know enough to be able to get things going and start things, and we know enough to support that person. Maybe not as good as you, but we can get through until you get back. And that's where cross training comes in and things of that nature. And so that's all the procedural things. The one thing you don't want in an IT department is where somebody comes in and Joe's gone for the day or gone for the week, and everything Joe does is put on hold till Joe gets back. You don't want that. Okay, you want cross training to where you can get things done. Okay, so action plan is the next one. Consider action plans here. Consider how solution affects users, networks, and scope. Functionality, scope is another one. Who it affects, how long. Wait if it's not an emergency. That's a good one there. You don't want to rush into anything. I've learned this over the years. In fact, I used to work for a guy that is accreditation for schools, and he was an English teacher at a college, and big old burly guy, and Dr. Ames was his name. And I used to walk in there at lunchtime, and I was the office manager, and I did graphic design, communication with customers, gathered all the materials from the schools for accreditation. And anyway, we'd have somebody mail in their accreditation. It'd be 2 weeks in. I'd say, hey, are we going to respond to this school? It's been 2 weeks. And he goes, we'll have another week. More professional, let them wait. Really? He'd say, yeah, it is. And I thought, at first when I thought of that, I got a little upset. But he said, when you respond quickly to people, immediately, every time, and in that area anyway, and accreditation, it makes it look like your organization is kind of like waiting on their edge of their seat for somebody to talk to them, for somebody to reach out to them. IT, on the other hand, is different than that. Okay? When people do call and need help, the one thing that I can relate to what Dr. Ames said is we don't want to immediately jump to a fix, because a lot of times when you jump to a fix, it can be incorrect. It can also, if it's a user issue, could cause other problems. So if you're fixing something that a user didn't follow procedure with, and you're trying to fix that procedure fix an issue that a procedural thing fixes anyway, that could cause problems. So what I mean by that is they say, do we really have to go in here and, I hate clicking twice in this area. I'd like to be able to just click once. Okay, that's a valid, that's something I've heard over the years, okay? I don't want to be able to click twice. Is there any way I can click once and kind of take 2 or 3 steps into one? If that's possible. Well, let's say I do fix that for that person. And procedure says you're supposed to click twice. For the other 90 people or 100 people that use that procedure, I'm going to totally mess up that procedure for them. Because they're used to clicking twice, but I fixed it once for this person because they wanted it done. Does that make sense? So just because somebody wants it done now does not mean we do it now. Does that make sense? Now that doesn't mean you don't try to find a solution, implement a solution, go through all the proper steps. And there are emergency cases where you're definitely going to have to do them now. But not every case is an emergency. Now, does users think every case is an emergency? Yes, they will. Every case is a dire straight emergency. But you've got to be able to, look at everything that's coming in and determine what's an emergency, what's not, And that's where your boss will come in, your superior, your supervisor, ask them the question, and they'll let you know. No, that can wait. Hey, so-and-so wants this done now. Do you want me to do it now, or do you want me to work on this? That's more important. They can wait till after lunch before you fix that. Does that make sense? And so you want to make sure that you don't implement things, hastily and just quickly all the time. There are some trade-offs when it comes to restoring functionality for one group. It may also remove functionality for another group, like the scenario I just mentioned of fixing the steps from 2 to 1 now messes it up for the entire group. Okay, because I fixed it for so-and-so from a 2-step to a 1-step, now it messes everybody up. Security, when it comes to creating an action plan and some of the potential effects, be aware of inadvertent security implications like network access, resource privileges, removal of those privileges. Before upgrading, patch installation, understand things sometimes need authorization. Some patches, when you update them, need authorization now where they didn't need before. I've seen that. And I'm a big believer on not pushing out patches and just because they're there, or updates just because they're there. I don't do that. I do not do that. I've had a lot of arguments with people on that in IT that are in networking, and I totally have seen too many networks and too many systems brought down by updates that really didn't need to be applied anyway in the first place. Okay, just because an update's out there for a Windows system doesn't need to be applied. In fact, a lot of the updates that are out there originated from another company that had an issue, and they fixed it for that company. Now it's rolled in this one big update that doesn't necessarily mean I need it. Okay, the one update that you can periodically usually be okay with, but again, you need to test this on some system in your environment before you do, is security updates for security patches. Cumulative security updates are generally okay. But again, I still test those for a month before applying them, unless it's an emergency type of security patch. And all of these security patches will tell you exactly what they are. You have to read them. They're not the most exciting thing to read. And then you can get on blogs. You can find out from other network guys what they're doing. So again, you don't just apply things because they're there. Because that can cause a lot of issues. Because I've mentioned it here before, a lot of times you install updates, upon restart of that server, it will not start up services that were started before, or it could cause services to need authorization it didn't need before. And that can cause problems. Okay? And especially, let's say this, I've had this happen to people. They've applied updates, went on vacation the next day. They applied updates the day before they left. Went on vacation the next day, nothing worked. Nothing worked when the people came in the next day. Had to roll back everything that they had and asked them, why did you update? Because they've been out there and they, for a month or two and nobody, that's not a reason to update. Just because they've been out there, you don't update. And so I think it's an OCD thing actually for some people. They see security thing and they gotta update it. They gotta apply it. They gotta do it. Can't see it out there. Scalability when it comes to action plan. Okay, what this is talking about is like position of network for future additions, enhancements, temporary fixes organization will outgrow. Let's talk about the bandwidth issue at lunchtime. There might be a way to combine your pipes coming in through AT&T, your internet connection, to bump up the bandwidth a little bit for little to no cost. That might be something to look into. Might be a temporary fix. Let's say, hey, we're going to have to increase this eventually if we're going to continue this. We're going to have to spend some money to increase internet speeds, internet bandwidth. Cost is the other implementation here when it comes to action plan. You need to weigh your options carefully, consider poor network performance. When it comes to cost, how much is it going to cost for us to fix this? Does it really need to be fixed? Is there a workaround for it? Can we do a workaround until we really can spend the money to fix it right? Okay, because you don't want to spend tons of man hours on fixing something that people can work around to get the job done. And let's say you're going to be updating something in 6 months, and so why spend 40 man hours when it's going to be updated anyway 6 months from now? The vendor information when it comes to action plan. Let's say you find out it's a switch from Cisco, it's a certain model switch. You search online that model and you find out that same model is having issues everywhere because of a recent update that was done on that switch last week. And everybody's having an issue with it, and lo and behold, Cisco just released a hotfix for that to fix it. Or they might say you need to roll it back. You don't need it anymore until they figure out what's going on. So online databases, the Spiceworks.com I mentioned is a great tool for online searching of any type of manufacturing item, whether it be switches, routers, wireless devices, laptops, desktops. Also, the vendor itself will a lot of times have what's called user groups, and those user groups can help you determine and troubleshoot issues, whether it might be for a user group for a software you purchase. A lot of the big software companies will have user groups in your area, okay, to where you can be online, you can go to the meetings, you can get feedback, you can give them feedback, and so very important to be a part of those. Then finally, you implement the test the solution. So implement only after your proposed solution has been researched. Implementation could be brief or long depending upon the problem. It could, and it does require foresight and patience, which I've said patience a lot already tonight, and that's one thing about tonight. If the theme could be tonight for troubleshooting, it's patience. Really. The number one skill you need is people skills, number two skills, people skills and patience. Those two will help you in troubleshooting, okay? Because I knew a guy here in town that president of a network of a bank, and he had two guys on staff. One was technically a genius on everything when it comes to networks. The other guy, he was okay, he could get by, but he was a people person like crazy. He could calm anybody down immediately, regardless of what the problem was. So when he had problems, somebody's really irate, he'd send both of them. He'd send the one guy to talk to him immediately, to calm him down, to figure out, you know, what's going on. The tech guy would be listening the whole time. He wouldn't say anything, because you didn't want him to say anything, because he'd probably get in trouble. So he just listened, and then get the first guy getting calmed down, and then the technical guy and him both would fix the issue and expedite and get it done quicker. So you might not be, you know, you're going to fall in one of the two realms of what I just mentioned. You're going to lean more towards, and today in all IT realms, you need to have a people person mentality. Some of you are naturally inclined to be that way already. Some of you are not. But even if you're not, you can get better in that area. And the only way to get better at it is you can go to, you know, like Dale Carnegie School of Sales. Like this banker sent this guy finally, the genius guy, to a sales conference, a number of them, and he got better. He got where he could talk to people, and he could go out on by himself, and you know, so it is trainable, it is learnable. Okay, it's something you can learn. Because in IT today, you really can't afford, used to we could afford to be rude, sit in a cubicle, and kind of like the guy's name, I'm sorry, like Burns, Dan Burns. Is it Dan Burns? You guys ever watch it, the sitcom, the skit on Saturday Night Live?
Nick Burns.
Nick Burns, thank you. So Dan Burns, I know a Dan Burns. Nick Burns, the computer guy. Everybody see that? Where he'd come in, guy would have a problem, say, move, he'd fix it. And then as he was leaving, he'd say, thank you. you're welcome, and leave. You can't do that anymore. You want to, but you can't. And so having people skills is going to definitely help you a lot. And patience. So people skill and patience. So once you roll out those solutions, there might be times to where you cannot immediately fix it. You let the person know. We're going to keep looking at this. We will figure it out. And here's what you can do in the meantime to get by. Let's figure out a way you can, whether you give another computer to work on, an intermediate computer, laptop, whatever, to get the job done. So you want to get them to where they can be productive for sure. You don't want them just to sit there staring at their monitor, okay, for a week while it's not working. So you can give them something to work on. It's not going to be theirs. They're not going to be totally 100% happy with it probably, but at least they get their work done. That's the main thing, okay? And it might be you have to replace that computer. You might, reinstall the software, whatever. But it's probably going to be a lot of them are going to be not quick, easy, I'm going to fix it in 5 minutes type thing. Now everybody wants that. They do. But you're not going to be able to do that every time, okay? But where documentation comes in, which is after you've done the testing, is documenting it. You can document it in ticket systems like SharePoint. You can document it in a number of different ticket systems that are out there. SharePoint's one that I've used a lot. Also, you have, trying to think, homegrown ticket systems. You've got Spiceworks has this built-in ticket system. I mean, if you just Google online ticket system, there's tons of them out there that you can build in these rules and recordings. But once you build these in and you put in the documentation and record them, if you've ever called help desk for any purpose on phone, how many's done that through Dell or any technology you bought over the years? When they ask you what the problem is, you can hear them typing in what you're saying, okay, keywords. I will actually tell them, type this in. Type this in. Here's a code I'm getting. Can you please type? I'll say, I work in IT. If you could please type this in, this would be great. I'd really appreciate it. You don't want to be rude about it. But, say, can you please type this in? I'd really appreciate it. You don't want to say, you don't want to say stuff like, you don't know what you're talking about, or, yes, my computer's on. Yes, it's turned on. Yes, my device is on. I've done these steps. And sometimes I do tell them the steps I've done immediately, troubleshoot right off the front. And then that way that kind of expedites the process. But what they do is they type in what the problem is, and they're trying to get results back in that database, okay? And the results will come back with solutions, okay? You can't connect to the internet, and we'll say this is Comcast, okay? Okay, we're gonna try to cycle that down. Let me show you how to do it. And then they walk you through the steps of how to do that, okay? And so they're finding those solutions by typing in a database of some type, whether it be SharePoint, whether it be an Access database, whatever, homegrown database, doesn't matter. But it's amazing how many IT departments don't have this. And every day they function and make it through the day without a system of any type. We just closed, where I program during the day, we closed, I had my yearly evaluation, and we had one of the things we had to bring up is how many tickets have been closed in the last year. And I had like 1,895 closed tickets, documented closed tickets, from open to close. And what's great about that is that when other issues come in, it just keeps, you can just type in, no matter what the issue is, it'll bring up what the solution was for something comparable to that issue. It might not be exact, but something comparable. And then that'll help you when you create that new ticket. And then that old ticket helps with closing the ticket, because you're basically just looking at past stuff that's happened. And you've maybe heard the saying, nothing new under the sun. Same in IT for the most part. There's going to be little quirky things that come up every once in a while. But for the most part, if you document things over a period of time, you'll start seeing things come around full circle, and you'll start seeing issues, and things will become, in your department will become smoother because you've got a system to work with. If you don't have a system to work with, you're just kind of like spinning your wheels every day. Well, gee, I wonder what's going to happen today. I don't know. Can I just hide? I saw a Dilbert comic where he was next to his cubicle, and he's saying to himself on the cubicle wall. On the cubicle wall. That's how a lot of people function. They just walk to work, get into work in the morning, they're like, okay, I'm in stealth mode. Nobody sees me. I'm wearing black. It's Friday. I'm wearing black shirt, black pants. I'm going to just melt in to my cubicle for 8 hours. And everybody has those days, right? We all have those days, even myself. And so, but you know, you don't want to kind of, that's the way you work all day, every day, your whole work life. And so it's definitely not the way we work. And so by having documented solutions, you can go back, and not only that, what you documented on your problems that you've had will help me sometimes. Because I will search what you've done and go, well, hey, Dan fixed it this way. I never thought of that. And try that solution, and guess what? It works. Okay? And so ticket, documenting through the ticket system, whatever one you use or create on your own works. It just does. And not having one, though, doesn't work. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I'll end on this one here before we take a little break and go into the troubleshooting part of this, which is a little video here. So call tracking system, like a help desk software, when you pick up the phone, you enter in the person's name, you enter in the problem, it pulls up possible solutions. Say it's a password issue, it's something you take care of right there on the phone. But say it's beyond that. Say it needs escalated to the phone person. Say their phone is doing weird things. Okay, it's not showing the menu for maybe it's not showing the menu for everybody in your workplace or something. So the phone person might need to go replace that phone possibly. They might tell you during the process, oh, by the way, I dropped the phone yesterday, or I spilled coffee on my phone, or whatever. Okay, and then you let the phone person know everything you just talked about, and when they get that ticket, it has the person's name, their extension, what the problem is. They look in their history of stuff that they've had. John spilled coffee on his phone last year. Guess what the solution was? Replace the phone. Whatever. Okay? So make sure that your call tracking system, whatever you use for your ticket system, has some type of unique number that can be assigned to it. That way, when you close a ticket, you close ticket number 8564. Now, internally, that's just for you personally, but also IT departments, folks know that when they start using that system, they'll say, my ticket number is 5345, whatever. And you just type it in, pull it up. Make sure it's highly customizable, meaning people can attach files to it. The SharePoint one we use, we can attach like email. I attach all emails to a ticket to the ticket itself. So when I get an email, I save it as an MSG file and attach it to that ticket. So when you open that ticket up, you can see not only the issues that an escalation or I solved it immediately or whatever, and all the emails attached to that. And then the end user is the one, and this has to go highly customizable. The end user, the one that submitted the problem, is the one that can actually close the issue as well. And they like that. People like the power of closing the loop. Because during that closing loop, which a lot of IT departments don't like to do this, is usually a survey of some type. Hey, how was Alex on that? How was Chuck on that? How was Jim on that? Whatever. And then they can determine from that, the managers can determine that so-and-so, how are we doing with our surveys. And so not only are they closing it there and making sure it's functional and that the trouble is gone, or at least are happy with what's going on. It might not be gone, but hey, you got me a new laptop, I'm happy, I'm working. You guys will figure out what's going on, and I'm not going to worry about Thanks for Dan helping me, or thanks for Jim helping me, or whatever the case may be. And so, by having it from start to finish, making it personal all the way through the end, from start to the end, is going to help whether you're a software developer firm, whether you're hardware, whether you're phones, whether you're customer service. This goes across the gamut what we're talking about with help desk. Okay? Because everybody in here, regardless of what you do in life, will help someone in your sphere of influence. And so you might not be picking up the phone every day and getting people problems like we're going to do tonight, but it could be that, you know, your coworker that you're working with has an issue, and you're going to troubleshoot and help them with these same steps you're learning, okay? And be able to, you know, solve it, help them get their job done, and then later on, somebody will help you probably with whatever issues you might have. So, any questions about this? Now, let me ask you, I told you I'd ask you a question, I guess, about this. I know you guys all work in different types of businesses, and you have in the past maybe as well, that use some type of ticket system of some type or whatever. Can you guys give me some things you've experienced or you've used maybe that you liked or maybe didn't like? Anybody?
We use Tiger Paw at work.
Tiger, what is it called?
Tiger Paw, it's awful.
Tiger Paw?
Yeah.
Is it like an online
It's a
ticketing system?
No, it's
No?
it's a locally SQL-based
Okay.
ticketing system.
And does it keep like the times and stuff you work on things, like how long you work on whatever project?
Yeah, times
And you don't like it?
time, people's time hacks and all that stuff. It's very clever. Very .NET-y.
Okay.
Very
Okay.
bulky.
So you don't like that one, that's what you guys use, all right? Okay. Anybody else have anything you've used? Any type of ticketing system or help desk system or documenting system in your business? So, okay, we had this issue, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna document it, we're gonna open it, close it, open it, resolve it, close it, something like that.
We use
Anybody?
Track It.
Well,
We used Track It on my previous job.
what was the name of it?
Track It.
Track it, track it. TRAC
K
and then
dash IT.
Dash IT. Track it. Okay.
Used it, but I like it.
Did you like it?
It
Did it
was
work?
it worked for how we were using it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting on the current job they
Okay.
don't use it.
A lot of places don't, actually. That's why I'm asking you guys.
I was really
what your
surprised
experience
though. On this.
is.
I mean, the last 20 years I've always used the help desk software in this job.
Well,
It's a different environment.
from
too,
talking
though.
to IT folks, I think the reason is if it's not documented and it's not written down somewhere, you can't be nailed on it. Seriously, no, I'm not joking. I'm not joking at all. That's the mentality. If I don't document it, and I don't, whether it be email, for sure email, or a ticket system, if I don't document it, then it can't be traced. I can't be nailed down on it for sure, 100%. It's their word against mine, whatever the case may be. And you say, well, that's not too great, but you know, it's a two-sided sword. Let's say you want to do things right, you want to document it, but let's say it could be turned around though later on to get you in trouble. Somebody doesn't like you, or somebody has something against you, or you know, whatever. They could use it, you know, could use that against you possibly, you know, whatever. I've heard that argument too, and I guess it is a valid argument. It could be a valid argument. And end of the day though, I've worked in both systems, one without a system and one with a system, and I think one without a system is still a system. It's just you just don't have anything you use. That's a system. And for some companies it works. I guess it does work for some companies. Personally, I've worked in both though. I like the ticket system, regardless of which one you go with, really. I like the concept of a ticket system, for IT anyway, because really in IT, we don't generate money. We don't make sales. So the only way we can say we did whatever, in my mind, in my experience, is by some quantitative way of showing here's what we did over whatever period of time. Here's how many hours we put into it. Now, one of the things we don't have in our system though is we do not put hours, how many hours we worked on it. We just say what the due dates are, we think, and then you can see when it was open and when it was closed. We don't attach hours. Some companies actually, like Sunstrand, attaches hours and then attaches those hours to certain departments that requested a ticket, and then they put dollars on those hours that the employees work on those projects, which makes sense, I guess, for larger companies like that. The problem with that is a lot of times the folks that are doing the project will, maybe fudge a little bit on how long it took, possibly. We'll say it took 5 minutes, they say, that took 5 days. No, I've seen that happen, right? Or vice versa, they said it took 5 days. No, it didn't. My ticket system said it took me 5 minutes. I can prove it to you. It's right here. So it can be used either way, depending on who controls it. But at the end of the day, though, I still do believe in ticket systems. I think they do work. Is there problems? Yeah. But for IT to keep things flowing good and keep the flow of your projects, I definitely think you should try it. And if nothing else, do it internally. Don't let anybody else know about it. That's actually how I first started using a ticket system. I used it for like a year without anybody knowing about it. It's just internally myself, for me, to see what I liked and didn't like about it. Then I tailored it and tweaked it to where I liked whatever it was and didn't like. I threw out what I didn't like and kept what I did like, and then that worked great. Okay, but when you're forced to use something, I can see where that could be a headache. It could be like, yeah, I don't want it. That's drudgery. It just adds to my daily task of things I don't want to do, and it's a waste of time. Okay, if I spend 10 minutes entering all this stuff, or I could be doing this, I can see where that could be a headache to do that. So, but I definitely recommend, if you guys don't have one at work, use your own. There's a lot of free ones out there you can try. There's online ones you can try, like Task Manager. You just Google Task Manager. A lot of open source ones. To where you can even get free. You can get free SharePoint now through Office 365.
Really?
You try that. Yeah, they have like a free version you can play with. Try something. That way you're doing it. If nothing else, for your own time management. I think you'll like it if you start using it. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and shift gears here. Let's look at the troubleshooting sheet first before I let you take a little break, because I'm gonna go right from this to the troubleshooting lab. So here's what's going to happen. Everybody in here should have a troubleshooting sheet, right? Go ahead and put your name right now on the line that says troubleshooter. Troubleshooter, if you could do that for me. So while you're doing that, I'm going to read this little exercise blurb I put together here, which is this exercise implements some real world scenarios that a network admin could go through during any given day. It's your job as an IT person to use your soft skills along with technical skills to find out a solution to the problem. Each troubleshooting problem in the exercise puts in the human factor of an emotional state of the user and the physical state of the network. And that's really important because every issue has both of these. Emotional state of the user, regardless how sane or insane that is, okay? And also the physical state of the network at that time. So, you guys have those sheets in front of you. I also have a bunch of sheets up here I'll be using that has user at the front. And here in just a second, I'll split you guys up, and half of you guys are going to walk out of the room that are the troubleshooters, you are the troubleshooter, and then the users are going to hang back. I'm going to kind of coach the users in here on your problem that you have. And then when the troubleshooter comes in, you guys will sit back to back in a chair. I'll say ring, ring, and you'll begin the process of troubleshooting. Okay, so let me read more on what we're going to do here. I want the users, and I can speak to everybody on this, the users that have a problem in just a second to read the problem, and also some of these problems have a mental state in the problem. Like it might say that the user here is very patient, patient to the T where they are very annoying. They're so patient. This user here, I'm just talking about emotional state. This user cannot understand English and things have to be repeated multiple times. This user is flirtatious. This user is very well versed in networking and was let go of the networking department and thinks the current network admin is useless. And so these are just some of the things the emotional state of some of the issues you'll be having. So the troubleshooter does not know what's on the sheet. You're going to ask questions that's on your handout, starting with, the first questions here, which are identify the problem, identify the scope, all that, all the way to the end, to the actual solution. There are, though, on some of the user sheets, areas that are underlined. There are some lines, numbers that have an underline on the actual user issue. The troubleshooter can ask for one of those clues only after asking at least 2 questions. The person that has the problem, the user, though, is not going to remind you of that fact that you have a clue here. Now, not all of them have